everyone and welcome to my channel. I'm Nikki, and today's video I'm going to be sharing with you guys my top 35 0-point foods on Weight Watchers, and I'm going to be going into detail about how I incorporate these foods and how I use them to stay on track with my weight loss and maintenance journey after I lost 70 pounds. So if you enjoyed this video or find it helpful, please go ahead and give it a like and subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate it. It always helps me out to get the word out about my videos. Even if you know someone who maybe uses Weight Watchers or is just trying to live a healthier lifestyle and you think they may enjoy my content, I always appreciate you guys sharing with others as well. And I also just appreciate you guys being here. So anyway, there are over 350 0-point foods on Weight Watchers now, and it can kind of get overwhelming when you look at the list and see all of the options. And sometimes it is like, okay, it's obvious it's fruits and veggies. If you are not diabetic, fruits are not 0 points. If you aren't set to diabetic, I do want to point that out before I start this. But there are a lot of times where it just like, you look at the list, even in the app, of all the 0-point foods, and it's kind of overwhelming to think about like, yeah, vegetables I need to incorporate, but just being able to use them. And I have, through the years, after losing 70 pounds in April 2020, I've learned how to incorporate these different 0-point foods. And it's also changed throughout the years what foods have become my favorites and which ones I've kind of gone through phases with. But today I'm going through my current top 35 0-point foods, and I'll be giving you guys some info about them. I kind of have them in categories, but not fully. And like I mentioned, some people's 0-point food list is gonna look a little bit different if you are set to the diabetic mode. I think there's a couple things. I don't think oats are 0 either. I need to double check on that. I might be wrong. Maybe it's corn. I don't know. But I do know that fruits are not 0 if you're set to the diabetic mode. And you can check which 0-point foods are available with the plan that you're on if you just go to the Weight Watchers app and hit 0-point foods in the sidebar, and then it'll just show you the different options that you have. But I narrowed down the 350 plus items to 35 today, and I'm gonna go ahead and start walking through them. So some of them are newer from the last time I did this. I did this video 2 years ago, and so there will be some different things that are 0 points now. But let's go ahead and start with the first thing, which is lean ground beef. So this is something that's a newer item added to the Weight Watchers list of 0-point foods as of last November, I wanna say it was, or maybe it was October. I don't even remember now what month, but they did make a change where they updated some 0-point foods, and ground beef and lean meats in general were added to that. I have definitely incorporated more ground beef since then, and the way that I use it the most is honestly to make burgers, because I crave burgers a lot. That's one of my favorite foods, and I really like to do smash burgers specifically. This is a really nice option because it's 0 points now. I don't have to focus on trying to keep everything else low point and maybe like cut out the bun if I want it, which I never really cut out the bun. If you guys have been following me, you know I really like my carbs and bread and pasta and stuff. But it does help to kind of make the meal a little bit more balanced, and I feel like it's helped shift my focus to more just whole foods because there are more 0-point foods that I can incorporate now. Anyway, this is lean ground beef. I've also really enjoyed making meatloaf with this. All you need to add is a little panko seasoning and egg and bake it in the oven. I'll put a little barbecue sauce, and then it makes a really good meatloaf, which you can use for sandwiches, bowls, or even just as a meal of meatloaf. But it's anything from 90% up for leanness is 0 points on Weight Watchers. And what's nice about it is that it's high protein, so it does make you more full when you eat it. For 4 ounces, it is 21 grams of protein. Okay, the next item that I'm talking about is ground poultry. So I've got ground chicken and ground turkey. Both of these are also 0 points on Weight Watchers. The 99% lean was always 0, but now it's anything 90% and up. So that really helps because usually when I find ground chicken, it's the 92% lean, which is exactly what this one is. So this is now 0 points on Weight Watchers, and it's got 22 grams of protein in the serving. The ground turkey has 20 grams of protein, and this is 93% lean. With both of these, I usually buy them in increments of 2 pounds. I have 2 pounds of the ground turkey here because I'm going to just cook it up in a pan and add some taco seasoning, and then I'll just have it prepped in the fridge as ground taco meat to make like copycat Taco Bell, or if we're even just having like nachos or something with taco meat, then it's just ready in the fridge. I also do that with the ground chicken, but I do prefer to use the ground chicken to do more like pasta type meats. So a lot of times I'll do meatballs or even chicken patties or like chicken burgers, which work well with pasta as well as some red sauce. You make it like a chicken parmesan. So I get creative with what I do with the different ground meats, but they're pretty interchangeable, and again, a nice higher protein option. Okay, I forgot to start with the number one item I was gonna start with, which is eggs. So eggs are 0 points on Weight Watchers. I think they have been since I started. And that is something that just really helps me, whether it's even just like baking and making different dishes, not having to worry about tracking eggs if you add them in, like when I make the ground beef or burgers or whatever. But also I like to use eggs to make breakfasts, whether it's like scrambled eggs or like a hash brown bake. Sometimes I do breakfast sandwiches, breakfast burritos. I can do a bunch of different things by just scrambling up some eggs. Usually I like to incorporate some veggies and a protein as well, so like bacon, sausage, something like that. That's where the points come in, but I always base my meal around the 0 point foods. So when I have eggs, I usually will do 2 to 3, depending on how hungry I'm feeling, but each one has 6 grams of protein in it, and I just keep that in mind if I want something more filling, if I know I'm gonna be more active that day, then I'll usually do 3 eggs. But this is just always an ingredient that I have on hand all the time. It's even nice to use as like a breading agent or when I'm baking and stuff, but eggs are a nice 0 point food. The next item I don't have right now, but it's just chicken breast. That's another item that I use all the time, and it's always been 0 points. I just really like it because it makes the meals more filling, and I always thought the chicken breast had to be dry, but the way that I cook it lately and the way that I incorporate it into meals, it never is, and that's why it's just easier to have it more, because I feel like that always like put me off to chicken before, is that I just thought it was dried out. So the way I like to make it, sometimes I will cook it in a pan and then pop it in my KitchenAid mixer and shred it, and then I can add taco seasoning to make it shredded taco chicken. I can add barbecue sauce to make it like a pulled chicken sandwich, or for pulled barbecue chicken on mac and cheese, which is one of my all-time favorite meals. And that way it's 0 points, but I can add a good amount and make it more filling, and then I add the points in when it comes to the cheese and the pasta. So I always try to keep meals balanced like that, and that's what I remember using the 0 point foods, but I always try to build the meals around the 0 point foods first. Okay, the next 0 point food that is always a staple, and specifically this brand has just always been my favorite. We have tried so many other plain non-fat Greek yogurt brands and not enjoyed any of them, just because we always go back to this one and like this one the best. It just always gives me the best results when it comes to 2 ingredient dough. I like to use it for chicken salad, or if I'm making a sauce, even like a taco sauce sometimes instead of sour cream. I don't like to do the 1-for-1 replacement. Like if I'm making a taco bowl, I want sour cream on it, but if I mix Greek yogurt with mild Taco Bell sauce and some garlic powder or something, or add some spice to it and then add it to a bowl, it definitely works better for me and just works better as a sauce. I don't like to use it as like a full sour cream replacement, if that makes sense. This is a good 0 point option for things like that. If you want to sweeten it, you could even use like a sugar-free sweetener, and then that would keep it 0 points, and you could make a yogurt bowl out of it for dessert, or you can even add something that has points to it, because this is 0 points. I always keep that in mind, but I think the thing that I use this for the most is definitely 2 ingredient dough. And again, it's another 0 point food that has a lot of protein. In 3/4 cup of this Greek yogurt, it's got 16 grams of protein. Okay, when it came to fruits and veggies, when I was picking my list, I really did want to keep it kind of limited because, like I said, I feel like those are a little bit more of the obvious ingredients when it comes to 0 point foods. And I just wanted to make this more helpful with some of the more unique 0 point foods that I use a lot. So I picked a few of my favorite fruits. This doesn't include all of the fruit that I eat. These are just the ones that I eat the most and I feel like talk about the most. So the first one, of course, is going to be apples. I have an apple every single day. My new favorite is definitely the Cosmic Crisp, which if you guys have been following me for a while, you may know that I used to eat a Honey Crisp apple every day, but they just have not been good lately. Maybe they'll come back and be good soon. I'm excited for apple picking season even. Maybe they'll be better then, but the Cosmic Crisp have been really good lately, so these are the ones I've just been buying consistently. I like to have them every single day after my dinner because it satisfies my sweet tooth, and it also helps to just make me feel a little bit more full. I feel like it helps with my digestion, and the fiber is also just an additional benefit, but I eat it right after I finish my dinner. And then if I'm still hungry for dessert, and usually when I am, because I usually am still hungry, I will have it afterward, but I'm a little bit more full from the apple, and a little bit of that sweetness has been satisfied, so I feel like it helps me to not indulge as much with dessert. But I always have an apple. It's just become a good habit that I do every single day, and I feel weird when I don't have my apple after dinner, honestly. So even if we're like out, we go out with someone or we go to someone else's house for dinner, when I come home, I always make sure to have my apple. Another fruit I have been eating a lot lately, and lately meaning like the past year, has been grapes. And I love these so much for snack plates. One of my all-time favorite snacks is just cheese with grapes. These are 0 points. They're nice and sweet, and I like to switch off between green and red grapes because I feel like it just changes the flavor enough that it like feels like I'm eating something different. It helps with variety and not getting burned out of the foods that I'm eating. But I like to have these with my breakfast or my lunches usually. Same kind of concept where when I finish eating something that's like salty or savory, I crave sweet right away after. And I know I've probably just continued to program myself to do that, but I've found that fruit really does satisfy that craving for me. So it helps me to get my fiber in for the day a little bit, and it just helps to get some extra nutrients that I need from fruit, but without having to have extra candy, or what I used to do in between meals was eat like gummy candy and stuff. So I have grapes for that reason. And they're also just a nice on-the-go snack if I'm packing like a meat stick and some grapes and nuts or something. That's always like a good filling snack. So that's one of my favorite fruits to eat. Okay, then I've got bananas, which I really like to use for protein shakes. Also bowls of cereal. I love slicing banana and adding them to like Cheerios and stuff. And now that I've really been enjoying the protein Cheerios, it's been a nice combo. And I've been having it for dessert a lot, but also for breakfast too. So I find that bananas are just more filling. Technically, if you blend them in a smoothie, they aren't 0 points anymore, but that's one of the Weight Watchers rules I just have never followed. And I can link my video in the description where I talk about the different Weight Watchers rules that I don't actually follow with the program, what has worked for me, but that's one of them. Bananas are just a nice, quick and easy fruit that I can use for a bunch of different things, even like creamies or pancakes or baking recipes. It's one of those things that I kind of forget about that's like a nice bonus 0 point ingredient I can kind of build different things with. Okay, next up, we've got some berries, which I really like to use for my yogurt bowls, as well as different breakfast type things like French toast, pancakes, even like waffles. It's really nice to add some berries, and then maybe like chicken sausage, especially make-bowl chicken sausage. That's always one of my favorite combos. I like to use berries for that. If I do a yogurt bowl, I'll add some of these and then some granola or cereal to give it a nice crunch. But these are 0 points on Weight Watchers, and I feel like that's mostly what I use them for. Then lately, I've also been using a lot of frozen fruit for my yogurt bowls. So that's my next favorite 0 point item, is just frozen fruit. I've got these berries here, and this is just a berry blend with strawberries, raspberries, and blueberries. It's just from Walmart. And then I've got mango chunks, but both of these, what I do is I'll just put them in a bowl and toss them in the microwave for usually like a minute. I'll mix them up, do another 30 seconds, and then they get nice and melty, and then I'll put yogurt on it and some granola or cereal, and it is such a good dessert. I kind of like when they get a little bit warmer because it almost reminds me of like a syrupy ice cream sundae, and the berries especially have such a good sweetness. I feel like I have just gotten some bad bags of frozen fruit in the past, and it turned me off to it because I thought it was kind of like bland and flavorless, but they actually just flash freeze it as it's fresh, and that's what keeps it that way. So when you thaw it, it is really sweet. At least I've had some good luck with it lately. So the berries have been my favorite to get. Sometimes I'll even just get a regular bag of strawberries, and that is so good even on pancakes too. Again, heat it up. It makes kind of like a little saucy syrup, and then you just drizzle it on top, and it is so good, and it's 0 points. So I always have frozen fruit in my freezer now. That is something that I buy every time we go to the store because I also go through it pretty quickly. Okay, next up, we've got some tuna, which I eat all the time because it's nice and filling, and I honestly have always just enjoyed tuna. I like to get the chunk light in water, which is 0 points on Weight Watchers. I've got two different options here. So you can get the cans like this, which these are from Sam's Club. I actually prefer the Costco ones because they're bigger and they have like the pop top, but either way, it's nice. I always just stock up when I can buy the big pack like this. And then these ones Adam uses more because they're easy for him to pack and bring to work. And he'll just open it up and then squeeze some mustard or light mayonnaise, some seasoning, and then you just mix it up and he can have it on bread or with crackers or something like that. So these are really convenient on the go, but when I'm at home, I usually just use the cans like this. I'll just strain them and add some light mayo or some Greek yogurt or even some flavored mustard. I have a like Southwest Arizona Heat mustard that I really like, and sometimes I'll just squeeze that into the tuna with different seasonings, maybe some chopped up onion or pickle, and then that's pretty much it. I'll just have it with some crackers and like grapes and cheese and all that stuff to make like a fancy snack plate. Or sometimes I just put it on bread and then pop it in the toaster oven with a little cheese on top, and I make a tuna melt out of it. 0 points. It's nice and filling because one can has 20 grams of protein and it's only 90 calories, but always a good option. That definitely has been one of my most eaten 0 point foods since I started Weight Watchers in 2020. Then we've got a couple other seafood items. So I don't have it with me, but salmon is probably the seafood that I make the most, and it's 0 points on Weight Watchers. I usually just buy the freezer bags from Trader Joe's or Sam's Club, and when I make them, I will just thaw it and spray it with some nonstick olive oil spray. I add some seasoning, which I can just switch off how I want to flavor it that day or how I want to season it that day, depending on what meal I'm using it for. So if it's like with pasta or stir fry or something, but I will put some seasoning and then just pop it in the oven and bake it. And usually I bake it all as a big batch because then it's just prepped for the week, and it's a nice 0 point ingredient that is honestly one of the most filling 0 point ingredients ever that I use. I am always so full when I have a meal that has salmon in it. So that's one of my favorite 0 point foods for seafood. Same with shrimp. I just have the large shrimp here with the tail on. This is raw. I like to use this for a bunch of different recipes, whether it's pasta or sesame noodles or stir fry. I've also breaded it with panko before, and that makes a really good topping for rice bowls. You can add some like bang bang sauce or something, or even like mango sauce is really good. But this is another more filling 0 point food. It's got 22 grams of protein for 8 shrimp, and it's usually really quick and easy to prepare because shrimp only takes a few minutes to cook. So I always make sure to have a bag of this in the freezer as well and use it for different meals. Like I said, sesame noodles, pasta, stuff like that. Okay, next up is another one of my favorites, which I feel like I just keep saying that about everything, but that's the point of this video. So air pop popcorn is 0 points on Weight Watchers, and it is one of my all-time favorite snacks. If you guys don't know, I talk about snack mixes all the time, and it's one of the most helpful things on my weight loss journey that has helped me from over snacking and just over consuming and not realizing what I was actually eating. I could stand in the pantry and just snack on a bunch of different bags of things at once, and with snack mixes and air pop popcorn, that's kind of solved that problem for me. So I pop this, and usually I'll use like 3 to 4 cups, just a normal serving of air pop popcorn, and I just spray it with some nonstick spray and add some seasoning or salt to it. And then I'll add some snacks in it. So pretty much what I would do going in the pantry and picking a bunch of different snacks, I take those snacks out and I weigh out like a 1 point portion of them, and I mix it in with the popcorn. And then it just makes a really filling snack mix out of it. And this is the secret to what makes it so filling. So it's a nice 0 point option. If you want something to snack on, I always recommend this. And I just have like a hot air popper that I just quickly make a batch with. And usually I'll make a bigger batch so that I just have it ready for the week. Next up, we've got corn, which is another ingredient that I use for a lot of different recipes, specifically when I do like rice and tacos, and I really like corn salsa, so I feel like that's why I go through cans of corn the most, is making that. Sometimes I'll also mix together like corn, beans, tomatoes, and add it to like Spanish rice, or just make it as a veggie mix to add to bowls. So corn is something that's 0 points, and it's got some fiber. It's pretty easy to prep. I usually just strain it out, and then I'll add it to whatever I'm cooking, if it's like a veggie mix, or if it's corn salsa, I don't even cook it. I just mix it with the stuff for the corn salsa, which that's a recipe in my cookbook, but something that I make all the time, and it satisfies that craving for chips and salsa. The salsa is 0 points with the corn, so then the chips are all that I have to track. Okay, then we've got unsweetened applesauce, which is 0 points on Weight Watchers. One container has 50 calories, and this is just the Mott's brand. This is the one I can usually find the most of, and they actually used to make a bunch of flavors, and we haven't been able to find those recently, so usually I just buy the regular apple. And as much as I like to use it as like a quick snack, Adam also packs these for work, but I love to use these for baking, and that's just why I always have them on hand. They help to add some sweetness, and I feel like in a lot of recipes really add some cakiness, and it's just like a good 0 point secret ingredient for baking. So no sugar added applesauce is 0 points on Weight Watchers. Okay, this next one is one that sometimes is harder to find in stores, but it is so helpful for me for making more filling meals and adding a good amount of protein and fiber, and that is edamame. So this is what it looks like, and I prefer to buy the shelled edamame like this in the freezer section. Usually I can find this brand at some stores. I actually found this at Walmart, but I also buy it from Trader Joe's. They have it sometimes in their freezer section, and they have it in their refrigerated section as well. But I like to get it shelled because then it's easy to just add to bowls, whether it's like a poke bowl or even like a stir fry bowl or sesame noodles. This is always a really good filling ingredient you can use. I also will sometimes mix this in with like corn and tomatoes and add it to like a Mexican dish or something. But for the serving of a half a cup of edamame, it's got 90 calories, 9 grams of protein, and 8 grams of fiber. I'm kind of picky when it comes to like peas and lima beans and stuff, but for some reason I think that edamame is really good. It's got a good bite to it. It's not too like mushy, and I like the flavor of it. So So I feel like it's pretty mild and goes with a lot of different things. If you haven't tried it, I definitely recommend it. That's one of my all-time favorite 0-point foods. Okay, the next item is beans. And although I don't have them that often, they are something that I like to take advantage of when it comes to making meals more filling and using 0-point foods to do that. So I've got fat-free refried beans are definitely one of my favorite types of beans to buy and use to cook with. I really like to add them to burritos or even like enchilada bakes in the oven. And for a half cup, it adds 6 grams of fiber and 6 grams of protein. It's 0 points on Weight Watchers, and these are pretty easy to season. I'll add some like garlic salt, garlic powder, onion powder, whatever I want to add to it. Sometimes I have different seasoning mixes as well, but you just need to add a little bit of that to it, and I feel like it gives it some good flavor. It's got a good consistency, and I feel like even compared to like full fat refried beans, I don't notice much of a difference. I feel like the flavor is still really good and it works well with different dishes. Then also with that, I wanted to include just regular beans. So the two that I use the most are definitely pinto beans and black beans. Even if I'm trying to do like at-home chipotle or something, or when I make chili, I use both of those beans. It's just another ingredient that I always have on hand that's 0 points. It's got 5 grams of fiber, 7 grams of protein, helps to make meals more filling, and it just tastes good. So these are a good option that I feel like I forget about beans being 0 a lot, but they're nice to make meals more filling. The next 0-point food is one that I don't use as much, but it's still one of them that is just nice that it's 0 when it comes to like baking, or even if I want to make pancakes, sometimes I will use oats to do that. Oats are 0 points on Weight Watchers. I've got the old-fashioned ones right here, and then I've also got steel cut oats, which I'm still trying to figure out the best way that I like to make these and enjoy them. We tried them at Panera Bread once, and I shared it in a video, and it was so good, and I just haven't been able to like duplicate the way that we made them there. So I'm trying to do that with some steel cut oats because they are 0 points. They've got 4 grams of fiber and 4 grams of protein in that serving, and it's just another ingredient that I feel like is pretty filling. Whenever I make a big bowl of oatmeal, I'll use these oats and then maybe like some fat-free milk to make it a little bit higher in protein. And then I like to top the bowl with a lot of berries. Sometimes I'll add maybe some brown sugar or even some chocolate chips or something to sweeten it up a little bit more, but I really like to use a lot of fruit with my oatmeal. I feel like that makes it taste the best. So even some shredded coconut is good. That's not a 0-point thing though. That's where it's nice that the oats are 0, and then the other things you can add to it can have some points. Okay, next up we've got potatoes. When I buy potatoes, sometimes I'll buy regular russet potatoes, and usually I will slice those up and make them into potato chips in the oven or the air fryer, or I'll cube them up and use them for a breakfast bowl. Same with sweet potatoes, I'll usually do the same thing. I'll do like sweet potato fries, potato chips, or I'll cube them up and use them for like a breakfast skillet. But I feel like I usually buy these types of potatoes the most, where they're just smaller, because I like to toss them on the grill and then use them as a side with burgers or chicken. They also make really good leftovers when I do grill them or roast them, because then I can use them for a breakfast bowl in the morning or something, or even like a burger bowl the next day. So these are some of the ones I like to get, but any potatoes are 0 points, and they definitely bulk up meals and make them more filling. I usually like to start with the regular portion, and if I'm still hungry, I'll have more, but that's actually something I kind of wanted to mention with this video. For most of these things, because I always get asked, how can you have all these 0-point foods and not gain weight? But the thing is, you'd have to eat a lot of these 0-point foods to gain weight, and you'd get really full in the process. When I started eating even more of like the lean meats and stuff, I was getting a lot more full faster than I had realized, and it's because I'm eating more protein and more of these like lean meats and stuff that are making me feel more full. But with some things I do over the portion size. So usually with vegetables, I will do like 1.5 servings just to get some extra veggies in. With fruit, I'll usually do a regular just 1 serving. And when I say serving, it's like what it is when you go to track, or when you look at like the serving size on certain things if they have labels. I usually just start with that, and then I'll add more if I want it. If, like I said, I'm feeling more hungry in the morning and I want 3 eggs instead of 2, I'll do that. If I'm making tacos and I've got the lean taco meat, I'll add some extra to make it more filling too if I'm feeling more hungry. But it just depends on how I'm feeling and what my protein goals are at that point, and just where I'm at. I usually, with most of these, just start with the regular portion size and then have more if I want it. But I don't get as caught up on portion sizes with 0-point foods as I do with maybe cheese and pasta and bread. I feel like that's more important for me to focus on. So that's really why this has worked for me, because I don't even track my 0-point foods. That's why I like Weight Watchers more than like my Fitness Pal and stuff, because technically you track everything with those, and you don't have to track your 0-point foods with Weight Watchers. When I make a meal and I only have to track 2 to 3 ingredients, it's just much more sustainable for me. So that's how it works for me, and I just wanted to kind of explain how I handle serving sizes when it comes to 0-point foods. With most things, I pretty much start with the normal serving size, unless it's just like a regular vegetable, or sometimes proteins when it's like lean chicken and stuff. Maybe I'll do 5 ounces instead of the 4-ounce serving. That's how I handle servings. But moving on to the next 0-point food, I actually don't have it with me, and that is delicata squash. It's not in season right now, but it is one of my favorite 0-point foods that kind of gives me sweet potato vibes, but it's got a little bit more of a sweetness to it. And what I like to do is just slice it up and spray it with some nonstick spray, add some seasoning, and roast it in the oven, and it is so good. It just has really good flavor to it. So it's something I always recommend, and I usually just leave the skin on when I roast it. I prefer it that way, but you can also scoop out the inside of the delicata squash and do different things with that because it's 0 points. Okay, the next ingredient we actually ate for dinner last night. I was gonna use it for this video, but we used the asparagus that we had. So I like to use asparagus as a side for different dinners, whether it's pasta or chicken, or even if it's gonna be an ingredient on a bowl or in a stir fry. It's just a nice veggie that I like to incorporate because we like the flavor of it, especially roasted in the oven. It makes meals more filling, and it just helps us to get more fiber and nutrients in. It's one of those veggies that, again, I didn't want to name every vegetable for this video, but that's one that I consistently buy as a side dish. When I can't think of how to incorporate a vegetable in the meal, it's easy to just roast it and have it there, and it tastes really good. So we enjoy asparagus. That's one of our favorite vegetables to have for 0 points. Another one is also green beans, which I like them fresh, but to be honest, I really like them in the can like this. I think just because I grew up eating these, and it's a recipe in my cookbook, but one of my all-time favorite side dishes where I just cook these green beans. I strain the can, I add some onion, some mushrooms, and Parmesan cheese, and a little bit of seasoning, and it is such a good side dish. So specifically, I like these green beans with it. They're quick and easy to make, and we just always have cans of them on hand. So green beans are 0. I do use fresh green beans as well, especially when the market's up and running in the summer and they've got fresh produce. Usually the green beans are really good, and I didn't have success with them in my garden last year. So I do buy them and have them as a side dish. Same way I kind of use asparagus, but I definitely prefer the cans when it comes to the side dish I like to make. Okay, the next item is cabbage, and I also don't have that on me right now because I used it up this week, but I used it to make some sesame noodles, which is one of our favorite dinners. I just heat up some toasted sesame oil. I pop the cabbage in with some maybe like bell pepper or whatever veggies I have, honestly. Sometimes I'll do edamame or zucchini, but I always like to use the cabbage because it kind of makes it taste more like Panda Express since they use it in their noodles. So I will just cook that up, and it adds some fiber and makes the noodles more filling, but as it cooks, it softens up. So I like to use cabbage for that, and also to make slaws when I'm having a side with like hot chicken, or if I'm making shrimp tacos and I want a slaw with it. You can make one with some Greek yogurt and lime juice and seasonings, and it's really good, and it gives the tacos a nice crunch, and the cabbage is 0 points. I always find myself like snacking more and more on the cabbage when I do that. So that's a good option to make meals a little bit more filling. The next 0-point food that I use all the time is cucumber. If you guys have been following me, I, in my grocery hauls, usually get the mini cucumbers, but lately I've actually switched to getting these English cucumbers because I find that they just don't go bad as quickly, and I can still chop these up into smaller bite-sized pieces, which is what I like. I don't really like the regular cucumbers that are as seedy in the middle, so that's why I prefer these. I usually just chop these up and add them to different rice bowls or like sushi styled recipes, especially anything that's like crab rangoon. I love the combination of cucumber with that, and again, 0 points. I can have a good amount of this. So sometimes I still do buy the smaller ones too, or with these, I will cut them into like little cucumber boats, and then I use them to dip in different dips that I like. So I really like the spinach kale dip from Trader Joe's, or I will make tuna salad and just use the cucumbers to dip in that, and it's a really refreshing combination, especially because all the ingredients I use are 0. Then I can have some crackers with it and some cheese with it, and like I said, that's where the point foods come in, but I always try to bulk up on the 0-point foods first. So cucumbers are something that I always like to buy for that. Even like Greek bowls or something, they really add a nice nice refreshing crunch to them. Then we've got some roasted red peppers, which these are something that I use so much, especially for Greek bowls like I mentioned. Actually, the combination of these two things is one of my favorites, and it's because I used to work at Potbelly and we had a Mediterranean sandwich that had hummus, cucumber, and roasted red peppers. I think that was the first place I tried these actually, and I have just loved them since. I pretty much just strain these out and I will put them on a sandwich. I'll put them on a rice bowl with some like chicken, tzatziki, cucumbers, like I said, or even as an ingredient in pasta. These just add such good flavor, and I really like that the texture is just so soft. It's something different, and I just always have roasted red peppers on hand. Specifically, make sure that they are in water, because I know sometimes they'll have some that are in oil, but these ones are in water, which keeps them at 0 points. Then the next item, I've got bell peppers, which I buy these every time I go to the grocery store. I've been making veggie mix for years now, and this is the main ingredient for that. I cook up some onion, pepper, and zucchini, and then that just becomes my veggie mix that I add to meals throughout the week. It works with so many different meals, whether it's pizza, nachos, pasta, tacos, any type of rice bowl, veggie mix can usually go with it. That's why I love to get bell peppers. I feel like that's just what I use them for the most. Lately, I've also been buying sweet peppers to kind of mix it up because they are just a little bit different, but both of them are just a nice 0 point ingredient that I use all the time. Then for that veggie mix, like I mentioned, I use zucchini. So zucchini is my next 0 point food that I use all the time, and this is such an easy vegetable to incorporate to bulk up meals without really adding any different like flavor or sometimes even texture. So when I make pasta, a lot of the times I'll just chop up a zucchini and add it in, and I feel like it just blends with the pasta, especially when there's a sauce and a protein and maybe some cheese. You can't even really tell that you've got the zucchini in there. So I like to use it for separate recipes like that, but I feel like the thing I use it for the most is definitely veggie mix. Okay, the next ingredient is something that I don't make all the time because it is something that makes me feel a little bit more bloated, but this is one of Adam's favorite 0 point foods, definitely, and that is hearts of palm. It is something that's unique if you haven't had it before. I always describe it as tasting like artichoke mixed with like maybe like spaghetti squash. I don't know. It's kind of similar to that, but it's got a nice bite to it and kind of like a sour taste. And there's a bunch of different ways that you can buy it. They have mashed like this, which it's kind of like mashed potatoes, but again, it kind of has that like asparagus artichoke flavor to it. It doesn't taste like potatoes, but it's the same texture kind of. Then we've got some riced hearts of palm, which this is just from Trader Joe's. And then I've got the pasta, which I think the pasta is Adam's favorite. I think the rice is actually my favorite. I like to make fried rice with it, and sometimes I'll also just add some jasmine rice that has the points, but this is 0 points and it helps to double the portion sizes without really noticing it, because especially when you have other vegetables in the fried rice, I feel like it kind of blends in more. But I also like to use it to make like Spanish rice, broccoli cheddar rice, and then with the noodles, I'll usually do like a white cheesy sauce and some chicken sausage. That's always Adam's favorite. And again, the entire thing is 0 points. So the package is 60 calories. It's got 13 carbs, 5 grams of fiber, 3 grams of sugar, and 3 grams of protein, and the only ingredient is hearts of palm. Okay, next up we've got mushrooms, which I've got 2 different types. So I do like to get fresh mushrooms for different recipes, whether it is just another veggie mix or if I'm going to be topping my pizza with it or I want to mix it in my eggs. Usually that's what I like to do with the fresh sliced mushrooms like this. I also like to get like the baby Bella mushrooms and stuff them with crab, with meat. I've been doing a bunch of different ones, and at this point I feel like I'm gonna have a whole stuffed mushroom section in my cookbook because we've just been loving all these different combinations, and it helps to have the base be 0 points as the mushroom. But it helps to make the meal more filling and get some nutrients in. And then the other option for mushrooms, I do like to get canned sliced mushrooms, and I don't use these all the time. I specifically will use them to make that veggie mix with green beans that I talked about. So I'll just strain a can and mix that in with onion and green beans and Parmesan cheese. Or sometimes I'll just use them to top pizza if I need it, or just if I don't have fresh mushrooms on hand. They're definitely different than fresh mushrooms, but they work and they're 0 points. So we always just have some cans in the pantry. Okay, next up we've got pickles, which are 0 points on WeightWatchers, and I specifically like the ones that are refrigerated at the grocery store. They do have the ones on the shelf, which you have to be careful because some have added sugar, but especially with these are just like fresh pickles in brine and there's no sugar. There's 0 points on WeightWatchers. A nice salty snack that I'll add to my snack plate sometimes, or I'll even pack some like on the go as like a quick bite-sized snack, or I like to just use them on sandwiches, burgers, chopped up in a burger bowl or different bowls. They're just a nice refreshing ingredient to have, and I just love snacking on them. So I always forget that pickles are 0, but it's a good snack option. Sometimes I even just want something like salty that'll satisfy that craving, and pickles are always a nice option for that. Next up, we've got sauerkraut, which is 0 points. I don't use it that often, but it is something that I like to have on hand for when I make like Reuben inspired recipes, which I really like Reuben sandwiches. So I try to make them in a bunch of different ways, whether it's like Reuben pasta or Reuben egg rolls or Reuben bowls. I just like to take the ingredients and make them into different things because we really enjoy them. So for that, I always use sauerkraut, and I just get a regular jar like this. I strain it out and just add it to the bowls. Sometimes I'll prepare it and like season it and stuff, but it is 0 points, really good for your gut health as well, and just something I always forget about as a 0 point food. Okay, then next up we've got salsa and tomatoes. I kind of just combined these because I always buy rotel to use for different recipes, whether it's like Spanish rice or a taco bake or enchilada bake. Even mixed with cheese, it can make a really flavorful queso. I have a recipe that I use all the time to make a queso like that, and I always use rotel because it adds good flavor, but 0 points. And then in this category, I wanted to just include like tomato salsas and stuff. So this is just what I had on hand. It's a 0 point salsa, but it's an ingredient that's nice to incorporate to add flavor to meals, whether it is like breakfast. Sometimes I even do breakfast tacos, and I always like to have salsa with those. Or if it's a dinner and I'm making taco bowls, another ingredient to add flavor, make it more filling, and add some veggies. And with that, I also wanted to include tomato sauce, which I just buy the cans. I'm actually out of it, but I buy the cans from Trader Joe's that are 0 points, and I just mix them with some seasoning and use them as a pasta sauce or a pizza sauce. Okay, the next 0 point item, which kind of goes with potatoes, but I gave it its own category, is shredded hash brown potatoes like this. You can buy them in the freezer section. Again, just double check that they didn't add any oil to them. These ones are in the refrigerated section, and they're just shredded hash browns that I use to make breakfast bowls with. Sometimes I'll get them nice and crispy and then just add scrambled eggs to them after, or I like to sometimes mix the eggs in while they're cooking and it becomes more of like a softer scramble. I'll add some cheese, protein, veggies, and it's just one of my all-time favorite breakfasts. So 0 points. There's something nice to just incorporate, and this brand specifically makes some diced potatoes as well. They even have some seasoned hash browns. I don't know if those have points because I think some of them do add oil, but you just always have to double check the ingredients to make sure. So a lot of times with 0 point foods, if I read the label and I see that it is only that 0 point food, like hearts of palm, it just says hearts of palm is the ingredient, but sometimes people will have that and then scan it and it comes up as points. If you see that that's the only ingredient though, and that is a 0 point food, then it should be 0 points. There are sometimes where the app doesn't register and 0 point foods show up as points, but as long as there's no added oil or anything, you should be good. Okay, the last item I'm sharing today is a specific product, but this is the Tyson blackened chicken and also the Tyson black pepper chicken, which I don't have with me today. Those are such a nice option for making meals when I don't have chicken cooked. So I just have this in my freezer, and what I like about the blackened specifically is that it kind of tastes like fast food chicken, which is really nice when I'm making like copycat meals at home. I actually put it on bread the other day with some shredded lettuce, and it tasted just like a fast food chicken sandwich, but it was so good and lower in points, higher in protein, and more filling because I got more chicken on it because I was the one making it. But for the serving of 3 ounces, it's got 20 grams of protein, 110 calories, and it's 0 points on WeightWatchers. And I usually just heat it up in my air fryer and then add it to whatever I'm making, whether it's a wrap or a bowl or pasta or whatever. That wraps up my 35 top 0 point foods out of the big list of over 350 on WeightWatchers. So I barely even scratched the surface today with what options you can incorporate. These are just what I incorporate the most in my life, my day-to-day meals that I make, and just the habits that keep me on track with my weight loss journey. And like I mentioned, these aren't the only 0 point foods I eat. There are many, many more. And if you guys check out my channel and my grocery hauls and stuff, you'll see that. But these are just my top ones that I use the most and that I'm just repurchasing over and over again. So I want to hear what your guys' top 0 point foods are, which ones you eat the most and repurchase the most, or even which one you've been eating the most from the start of your journey. For me, a lot of these I have been from the start, but some of them I've also just found along the way that I really like. Like, I don't think we liked hearts of palm from the start. We found it a couple years in, even I think through my channel, people recommended it. But over the years, I've just found different 0 point foods that I enjoy more. Sometimes I'll scroll through the list on the app and try to get new ideas of what to incorporate, but these are usually the basics that I stick with. So I hope you guys found this video helpful. If you did, please go ahead and give it a like and subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.